Welcome to Podcast Awesome. In this series of Nerd Show and Tell episodes, we chat with members of the Font Awesome team, take a deep dive into some of their recent work, and share the nerdy interests that enrich their lives.
Font Awesome, go make something awesome. Font Awesome, go make something awesome.
I'm your host, Matt Johnson, and today we're talking with Trevor Chase, the real human behind Font Awesome technical support. Trevor lets us in on the most common tech support questions he gets, why he made a career change from middle school principal to tech, and a little bit about his coffee roasting obsession. So Trevor, if I'm not mistaken, you were not always a tech support person. You actually had another professional life years ago. Can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you made your way to Font Awesome?
Yeah. Definitely was not part of any computer background. That was kind of my brother's thing. So no, I started out the bachelor's degree in business administration. I was working at a bank at the time I was going to college. So didn't really know what I wanted to do right out the gate. So got my business degree and started doing some loans with the bank. And then my wife was actually in education. She taught business. And so we kind of talked about that. And I decided to change my route to that. So I went and actually got hired without a teaching degree yet. But I got my master's degree in teaching and taught high school business for a few years and coached. And then got my specialist in educational leadership, so superintendency and building level administration. So I became a assistant principal for a junior high in the town that I grew up in, and did that for 8 years. So I was in education for a total of 13 years. And so, yeah.
And the world of education is no joke. I mean, my extended family we're all public school music teachers, and man, you got to really have a love for it. So inevitably, like you made a pivot and you made a change. What was challenging about that kind of role?
Yeah. So as an assistant principal, in particular, where I handled the majority of the discipline and attendance issue, and so our issues. It just got to be several years down the line of just dealing with a lot of negativity in the building. That's just kind of the role I played, is a lot of the negative of the building would come to me.
Right.
And that just kind of weighs on you. And I got kind of done doing that. I quickly realized I didn't want to be the building principal anytime soon. And it could be stressful, that job, and assistant principal could be. Both of them are stressful jobs. And so
Sure.
I just decided, that's not the path I wanted to continue going down. So.
Yeah. I mean, I imagine myself as a junior hire and think God bless those principals and administrators that had to deal with punks like me. I mean, my goodness.
It's an interesting age. It takes special people to teach and lead in that age group. I mean, they can be fun, but yeah, they can be challenging as well.
And so your brother is Travis, and he obviously is, a tech nerd and is working with Dave on Font Awesome. And yeah, how did that go? Like, so you felt like you needed a change. Did it occur to you at all that maybe you'd get into the world of tech, or how did that come about?
No, it was actually kind of funny. I didn't hardly ever take time off because in that position, I mean, it just piles on you, so it was actually worse being gone than being there. So, but I actually decided, I'm going to take the day off. I had been doing some research and kind of talking to some people I knew. So I was actually going to go back into the banking industry just because that's something I knew and something I knew I could get back into. And if nothing else, would be a decent transition period for me. And so I took the day, I think I maybe just took a half day, and I went over to Travis's house and said, "Hey, I want to talk to you about, what I'm doing." I valued his opinion. He had been in the business world and I hadn't been in that world for quite some time, 13 years. So I told him I'm going to leave education. At the time, I had two job offers, two different banking institutions, and so what do you think? What do you think I should do? And he said, well, if you really are going to leave education, why don't you come work for us? And I just kind of
Nice.
laughed. I just kind of laughed because I'm like,
Yeah.
I have never been into computers growing up. He was always into gaming and the computer world, and it just never was me. I just
Hmm.
never something I thought I'd get into. And so I said, well, that's funny, but yeah, right. And he was like,
Uh-huh.
well, let me show you what the stuff that we need and what you would be doing. And he showed me, and he said, if that seems interesting and you're willing to learn, then it's something we really need right now. And so I decided, hey, this is different. It's different. It's new. It's something I definitely would never get bored in this position because there's always something to learn.
Hmm.
And so I was like, okay, let's do it. So he and Dave talked about it and decided to bring me on board. And that was about 4.5 years ago. So yeah, it's been good. It's been really good.
What are the most common support questions you tend to get on a day-to-day basis?
A lot of it has to do with our licensing. Just people wanting to make sure that they are using either our free or pro version correctly. So we get a lot of licensing questions. We of course get some more technical questions as far as, hey, this trying to use this icon, it's not working. What's going on? So we can get in there, into their website and debug that for them. And so, yeah, a lot of those questions of just licensing or how to use in different environments. It's been good because I had zero technical background at all, so I've had to learn on my own and read a lot and try to get into that side as much as I can with the limited experience I had before. So it's every day you're learning something new, which is great.
So we really value ongoing development and learning at Font Awesome, which is a real core aspect of our culture, which is awesome.
Mhm.
So, you coming into this role and needing to learn, that's a great fit, to have space to do that. What do you work on? And do you take kind of like calculated approach to how you learn or?
Yeah, I'm very much a hands-on learner, so I've got to actually be watching a video on how to do something or reading a book on how to do something. I very much need examples and get in there and actually start doing, and that's how I learn the best. Some people can just read it and they've got it. That's not necessarily me. I've got to be doing it and
Yeah.
doing it for a few times before it really sinks in. So, but yeah, this environment, Travis and Dave have always been ones who they've never said no to anything I've asked as far as, hey, can I try this out? Can I get this book to learn this? I mean, they're always for continuing education. And so anytime I've done like an online class or purchased, reading materials or whatever, it's always been very easy to do so. And, it's just kind of one of those things where obviously in the tech world, there's always something to learn. And so that's been the fun part. Like I've told my kids, it's kind of fun for them to see too. Like I've told them, I'll never be bored in this environment because, if I am, it's my own fault because there's always something to learn. And there's always different platforms out there to learn from, which is great too. So whether you're just a reader or you're hands on, it doesn't matter. There's lots of stuff out there. So it's been good for me to learn, all the ins and outs of just HTML, CSS, and how our icons, how our stuff works within different environments. There's still a ton for me to learn, but
Mhm.
but it's been fun. It's been fun to get to play around with that and gain more knowledge as I go.
Yeah. And you've recently moved into doing some more QA work, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's been fun.
Yeah. What was it about that seemed interesting to you?
I really like debugging. I really like finding issues that maybe our customers run into and trying to fix that. I've always kind of liked that. even in my previous job as assistant principal, I liked putting out fires. I liked the day to day of, hey, something's come up. How are we going to fix this? So I've always enjoyed that. And so with the QA stuff, I can get in there and play around and test out the stuff that our dev and design team that they work so hard on. And I can just go in there and from a customer perspective, just go through some test plans that they've written up, and then also kind of tinker around and see what I can break or not break. And that to me is fun. It's nice because I can be a part of that side of the team and not just on the customer side. And so it's a good integration of both of those worlds.
So do you have any favorite Font Awesome icons?
Yeah, definitely. So I really geek out on coffee and coffee roasting. And so pretty much all of our icons that deal with coffee, coffee bean, coffee pot, the mug and all that kind of stuff, that's definitely right up my alley.
We've got all the caffeinated beverages covered for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, tell me more about the coffee making part.
Yeah, so it's something I've been doing for probably, I don't know, close to 12 years or so, and actually started out just using an old school popcorn popper, one of those tower popcorn poppers, and it's not the most efficient way of roasting, but it does give you freshly roasted coffee. So I started out doing that many years ago, and then kind of talked to my dad, and he's retired and he wanted something fun to do on the side. And so we kind of started a little side business, a little coffee roasting business. And he
Nice.
purchased a little sample roaster, drum roaster. And so we both kind of learned on that, which was, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. As you get deeper into that, like what's the process for figuring out how to create a great roast?
Yeah, so there's a ton to it. When we bought the drum roaster, it uses propane for the heating element, and then you have airflow, and you have the speed of the drum, and so all those things work together through timing to really roast the beans. There's some great videos online. I think we watched them on YouTube from Mill City Roasters. It's almost like taking a class, really. And they kind of walk you through the stages of the roast. And, once you get the basics down from there, it's just kind of playing around with the different beans. They're, coming from different parts of the world, and, at each roasting level, depending on the time and the heat you use and everything, it can produce a completely different cup of coffee. And that's the fun. That's the fun of it. The same bean, you can get different flavors, based on how long you've roasted or not. And so really for me, I love just, trying out, ordering different beans from different parts of the world, and just, just seeing what I like the best, what tastes best for my palate. And it's something I really enjoy doing. Yeah.
And you had a great story about, I don't know if it was like the beginning of your coffee obsession, but it sort of cemented it, maybe just cemented it more for you, but you had a story about being overseas. Tell us a story about that.
Yeah. So my wife and our youngest son is adopted from Ethiopia. And so during that process of the adoption, we had to travel twice for different stages of the adoption process. Both times when we're there, we would obviously go out to eat and, get to know the area and the culture more. And so they'll do coffee ceremonies at some of the restaurants for you. In fact, they did that at the orphanage for us as well. Ethiopia is known as the birthplace of coffee. And so very partial to that coffee. Ethiopian yogurt is by far my favorite. But in that coffee ceremony, they'll roast the coffee right in front of you.
Wow.
And it is just, it's such a great experience. Now the coffee is very strong, that they roast it right there over some hot coals, and they give you enough for like very, like 2 shots of coffee. But it's fantastic. And that's just that to me just was like, what a cool thing to do with other people and to get them involved in. From there, that's just like, I want to roast coffee when I get back home. It just progressed from there. That's something that I'll never forget. Quite the experience that my wife and I were able to be a part of.
Yeah. people involve you in the process at every step of it, and it's so tactile. You know, you can smell it, you can see it, you see the finished product, and you put it in your mouth. You know,
Oh yeah.
there's just something about the whole experience. It's so great.
Yeah, it's great. It's a the coffee ceremony involves the roasting of the coffee and sharing it, and then they make popcorn right there too with you, and it's all about sharing the experience with one another. And so popcorn is something that easily can be shared around a group of people, and of course coffee as well. So it's very much a communal experience, and they'll do it in restaurants even here in the states, Ethiopian restaurants, which is pretty fun to do as well.
Yeah. Can you get a legit cup of Ethiopian coffee that is in the ballpark of what you tasted there, or is it just sort of its own thing altogether?
My dad and I, whenever we would order, we would use an importer from the states, and they would get the beans from different farms, from the different countries. And man, we got one bag in particular. I remember getting, it was one of the first Yirgacheffe bags we got. I think it was like a 130-pound bag, but I mean, it produced some of the best coffee I've ever had in my life.
Mm,
I mean, for me, I got a very strong, like a blueberry flavor note out of it, and it was killer. I mean, it was so good, and that's the fun part about coffee too. Like depending on where it's grown, it takes on flavors of what it's grown by. So that's where you get some of those cocoa or fruit flavors, and with it being a berry itself, that to me is another interesting part about the coffee process of roasting is trying to get those different flavor notes out of them. And
mhm.
again, that's part of how long you roast, and you can definitely get some good coffee over here.
We have our now they're biannual meetups, the snuggles, as we
Oh
call it.
yes.
It's our time to kind of reconnect in person, since we're a remote company and we're all working in different parts of the country. What do you enjoy most about the snuggle time?
Yeah, it's for me now in particular because we have my family did move. We live, we're down in Tampa now, and so that's quite a ways away from the Joplin office that I used to go to and see the guys. So for me, it's great just seeing everybody as many times a year as we can. I love it. The team building that we do, the conversations that we have. Everybody's they come from different parts of the country, and I grew up in the same small town my whole life. It really has opened my eyes to the ways people live in different environments, and so for me, it's been great just getting to know the people where they're from and getting to know their background more. I've really enjoyed that throughout the years, and the first snuggle that I went to, there was only I think I was the fifth person hired. Excuse me. So there were seven of us,
Mhm.
including Dave and Travis. So it's grown to now up to 17 and now 18 people, and evolved quite a bit over the years that
Yeah.
I've been with Fun Awesome, and I enjoyed every time. You get to have different conversations with the same people sometimes, and it's been fun just getting to know everybody a little deeper, and it does kind of reconnect you because being remote, sometimes you kind of feel isolated at times depending on what position you have.
Mhm.
And so when you get to reconnect with people, that it just makes it feel more like a small company that we are, um,
Mhm.
which I
It's
really
kind of a
enjoy.
Yeah, it's kind of a best of both worlds, and it is true when you work remote. There are downsides to it to not working in office, but the plus side is that we have a lot of freedom. We kind of define how we do our work, and we can get really focused on what we're doing. Make sure that when we set out on a batch of work, it's very well defined so that we kind of know what we have to get after. When we get together, it really is focused on reconnecting with folks again, and we do a little bit of work. We do some
Sure.
planning and
Yeah.
we actually get some work done, but the focus being just being together and going and doing fun stuff, seeing a movie, having fire pits, eating good food. It's just a great way to reconnect.
Yeah, it's something I look forward to every time it comes around. When COVID hit, and we put that on hold for a few snuggles there in a row. That was kind of a bummer. Really,
Yeah.
because I do like seeing everybody. I do like hanging out with them. I was glad when that started back up and when we could safely do that.
Yep, me too. Thanks for listening in to Podcast Awesome. A special thank you to Trevor for coming on the show. If you like what you've heard, please give us a rating and review and share this episode with your nerd friends. This episode was produced and edited by yours truly, Matt Johnson. The Font Awesome theme song was composed by Ronnie Martin, and audio mastering was done by Chris Enns at Lemon Productions.